Basement Politics with Freddie Vasquez. Another remix episode. Guest tonight, London Reyes, candidate for Westchester County Legislator District 17. Help me welcome London. Hey, good evening, London. How you doing this evening?
Good. Yo, I love it, bro. You got sound effects, crowds, applause, man. Yeah. Stop playing. Who's better than you?
I like to think nobody, but I don't want to be egotistical. There are other people out there, and I think they're noticing, right? So anyway, good evening. London Reyes, candidate for Westchester County Legislator District 17. And I think I put 17 in down there, but I can change that. I was thinking of Christopher Johnson, who I spoke with not too long ago. Mm-hmm. But anyway, London, you're back on. I called this the remix. I had Stella Suchow, candidate for City Council, District 6, right? She came back on. We also did a remix episode, and now you're back on. The day before the primaries. How are you feeling?
I feel like this is the remix.
Well, tell me a little bit. I mean, I know you've been working hard. Today is the last, night before the primaries. So tomorrow when you go to bed, you will either go to bed a winner or you will go to bed a loser.
Right.
How do you feel?
I usually feel my hands. Look at that. I knocked out so many doors. I got wounds.
Well, I know you've been canvassing a lot. That's definitely one thing that I've mentioned about all the candidates. But you're definitely always hustling. Sometimes you're like, let's make it quick, and I'll call you back. Even now, I'm saying we have to start a little bit later. I was a little also busy too, but you've been knocking. How's it been going? What has been the consensus out there?
I mean, I think ultimately people want something different, something new. Something that hasn't been going on for the last 20 years.
Well, what is that? Tell me. What is it that's been going on for the last 20 years? And what is it exactly that the people are saying they want change when you're knocking on those doors? And I know you're knocking because I've seen you personally knocking.
Yeah. I ran into you one time in the street. Who would have thought? Well, I think ultimately... people need to understand what it is that they want. Yeah. So for me, I believe government is there to make our lives better, easier. And there are some people that don't believe that. There are some people that think that government is there to make their lives better or easier.
Well, that's been something that I've been hearing, right, from some of the candidates. There's this establishment that, kind of keeps coming up. And so, there's a lot of change, right? I've been talking about the grassroots, the candidates that are young and coming from community activism, very bright young people, very well educated, and they're looking to create change and to talk about the establishment because they feel that change is not happening, right? Is that what we are, or what you're saying here? We need change, and how do you plan on bringing that change?
Well, I think it starts by the way you govern, to be quite honest with you. I think it starts with you taking a different approach. I'm a community organizer. So right off the bat, I'm slightly different than everybody else. I don't think any candidate that's running in office in any seat organizes. I think they're just professional politicians. They speak the good speak. They walk the walk of what they preach, which is, we're there to make their lives better. I think that as an organizer, what we try to do is we try to look for solutions to problems. And what I tell people is that if you feel like your life has improved over the last 20 years, 15, 20 years, I'm not the candidate for you. I represent change. I represent a different approach. I represent solutions to our problems, like affordable housing, which is not really affordable. I don't even know why they call it affordable housing. It's not affordable. Unaffordable rents. I mean, we're in a rent crisis right now. There's a lot of issues that are going on that are not being addressed. And I look to try to bring solutions to these problems.
Well, yeah, affordable housing is definitely one of the hot button topics. I think I've talked about it with many of the candidates recently. I want to get a little more detailed and more specific.
Okay.
And talk about the incident that happened in the No Dine Hill section of
Mhm.
Yonkers, right on Elm Street and Oak Street, I believe, correct?
Mhm.
The drive-by shooting that happened in broad daylight. There was video of it. You see a car coming up the street, up the hill there, and someone sticking out a gun and just shooting four individuals that were standing in the corner. That's a district, or I should say, a part of town, a part of Yonkers that would fall into your district, right?
Yeah.
How
Mhm.
do you feel about that? Tell me a little bit about the incident. Did you go out there? Did you speak with people? What are they saying?
Yeah, listen, I'm out there every day. I mean, my kids were born and raised in Notting Hill. We know Notting Hill very, very well. There was an article by Ernie Garcia back in 2006 that called me the king of Notting Hill because when he came down to cover some issues, there was a shooting and it was one of the kids that was murdered from Notting Hill. And when he went down there and did an interview on me, he was shocked that so many people recognized me and knew me. We walked around. And that was the beginning of me just starting to really try to hold the elected officials accountable for the lack of services, the lack of programming, the lack of effort. And that's what kind of got things rolling, you know. So for me, I think that the issue really is that there is not investment in a place like Notting Hill. Notting Hill, unfortunately, does not have a high voter turnout rate. As a result, people do not invest. For example, my opponent lives in Notting Hill, and he chose to spend $10 million on a park that's not in Notting Hill, which desperately needs it, right? He chose to spend it at Ludlow area, which maybe doesn't need it as much as a place like Notting Hill. If you gave kids opportunities, you would see less violence, less killing. In 2007, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was an anti-gang program on Channel 12 held at the Nepperhan Community Center where I spoke out. So this is not something new. You're talking 13, 14 years ago. And this was happening even before I was there. But that was the first time that I spoke publicly about these things. And what I spoke about basically is that they were cutting services, they were cutting programs, they were cutting to the point where kids didn't have after school programs, after school activities. They didn't have a community. Do you realize that Notting Hill has no community center? Not
It,
one.
I mean, isn't there one that recently opened up off Prescott? Is that a community center there? I know there's a park there, and it
Well,
has some kind of community center. Is that correct? I just want to be clear because I thought that was a community center there. I'm not, although I don't know what's going on in there. I drove past it once, but I don't know. Is that a community center up there? What's that they have there by that park?
well, I'll put it to you like this. To me, a community center from when I grew up in the South Bronx, like St. Mary's, had a swimming pool, had a basketball court, indoors, outdoors, had activities, computer rooms, board games. They had all kind of stuff. Calling a facility a community center doesn't make it a community center.
Right.
The YMCA is a community center. We don't have that here. The PAL is a community center. We don't have that here. The Boys and Girls Club is a community center. We don't have that here. Just because you call it a building or a room or a structure, a center, doesn't make it a community center, right?
Right.
You may say people gather there, which might be true, but community center has activities. They have programs. I remember doing things there as a kid, making baskets or just, doing arts and crafts, playing sports, swimming, having real like activities with other members from the community. That's why they call it a community center.
Did you
People
ever
went
do
there.
the string things that with the plastic,
Absolutely. Yes,
right?
yes, yes,
And
yes. Yep.
everybody wanted to do the cobra or the
Yeah,
snake,
right. That's it.
right?
Yeah, of
The
course.
snake
Yeah.
the head of the snake was the hardest to do. And
Yes.
my aunt actually knew how to do it well. I remember those programs, and
Yeah.
as a product of a southwest side of Yonkers, I grew up on Buena Vista. I hung out a lot at Old Boyle Park, which we called
Mhm.
Sunset Park, and I remember the free lunch program
Yeah.
and the big tank that they would bring and fill it up with the fire hydrant water. I
Yeah.
loved it. I mean, we thought it was
Yeah.
great. I mean, I didn't know
Yeah.
that this was because we were low income, right? We just were having so much fun, right? I didn't have a report. We have a pool right on the end of the street. How lucky are we? So, but yes, we don't have that anymore. You definitely see a lack in that. On those type of things in the community, and it is very saddening because the day after that incident, right on the Nodine Hill over there on Elm Street, I went out there the next day to get a little bit of just footage and speak to some of the people there. And I spoke to some of the residents, some homeowners, I'm sorry, some business owners, and they mentioned that there's just no attention being paid to that section. Right? They need lighting, they need more police presence. They need to see the representatives out there in the street. There was no crossing guard, and there were a lot of kids. So you would think in that area, I mean, at least I would be saying, hey, maybe that's an area we want to have a community center, right? I mean, there are a lot of kids, right? So, I mean, tell me about that. I mean, they're complaining, right? There's none of these services that they feel that they need.
You're absolutely right. And what I tell people is until you start to get out and vote, nothing is going to change. And that's the reality of what's happening in Yonkers, specifically Southwest Yonkers. The Ludlow Park area did a phenomenal job. They organized, they empowered themselves politically, and they're getting things done. They're getting a park built over there. They're getting construction built over there. They're getting housing development. They're going to develop their waterfront area over there because they decided enough was enough, and they mobilized. They got people together. They said, listen, everybody's going to vote the same way. Everybody's going to represent each other. We're going to go to these rallies. We're going to go to these functions, and we're going to make it that these politicians are going to talk about Ludlow Park. And we don't care what anybody has to say. We're going to get things done because we're organizing ourselves. And I applaud them for that. I'm just want everybody else to do the same thing.
And you saying that, I have a comment up, Chris Perry. Good evening, Chris. Thank you for watching and thank you for your comment. I appreciate you tuning in. He says others need to get involved to evolve that community center. And that's exactly to what you were saying that happened in the Ludlow Park section, right? Communities need to get involved. People also need to become active. And I'm trying to do my part. That's really why I'm also here and doing what I do. And I going back to what you mentioned about the low voter turnout in the section, that part of Yonkers, again, that goes to saying we need to get involved. We need more people to get out. And really quick, I just want to mention something to that point that Councilwoman Tasha Diaz mentioned to me when I was speaking with her at some point, in that she was talking to me about my wife who had went to the city council meeting to speak about the need for social workers in the Yonkers public schools. To our surprise, and I don't want to say in a negative way, we were just surprised, that 2 days later, Councilwoman Tasha Diaz announced that they had allocated more money for social workers in the schools, and she mentioned, my wife's name, which I appreciate. I thought that was great, but she did mention something when I spoke to her about it, in that a lot of people don't come out to the council meetings, right? They say people are not coming to the meetings to speak. She said, your wife came out and she spoke. And you see what happens when you speak. So is that the case? Are people not coming out? Are people not being vocal enough?
Absolutely. I mean, Tasha Diaz is doing a great job, right? She's very active to the point where every politician is trying to attach themselves to her because they can't do what she's doing. So everybody that's running for office is riding her coattail right now because she's active. They need to be. Think about this for a minute. She just got into office. She has not even completed one term. She has not even completed 2 terms. And you have people that got elected in 2001 following her around, trying to seek her approval. You have other people that are elected running for re-election following her around. Whatever she does, they want to be a part of. I take my hat over to someone like Tasha Diaz. We need more people like that. And I hope that I get elected so that I can do things like that. We have to be active. We can't be in a bunker. We can't be in a basement. We can't be hiding. We can't be having 2, 3 jobs and pretending that this is the most important thing. Those things are not happening. And that's why people are in pain. And people need to recognize that. They have a choice. Do you want to give these politicians the opportunity to say that they're helping you by giving you free food, by having you stand in line for hours. There's nothing wrong with that. Charity is definitely needed, but I don't want to live my life having to stand in line waiting for someone to give me something. I want to earn it myself. I want to have a job, not a job, excuse me. I want to have a career where I can provide for my family. You know, I don't want to, there's nothing wrong with standing in line and getting free books or book bags or clothing. Those things are needed, but that's not the way that you should be living your life. Politicians and people that are elected should be able to provide legislation which creates relief and opportunity so that everyone can benefit, not just their family and friends, or not people that just donate to their campaigns. And that's what's happening. We need people to be active, and there's no one active. There's maybe one or two people that are really, truly active. Tasha Diaz being one.
And you touched on a couple things there, and 2 points, two things that I was thinking about as you were speaking. Yes, you know, I agree. One, that I see Tasha Diaz out there. As far as, you know, I'm not sure in terms of writing coattails. Maybe I guess you mean when other politicians are joining an event that she may be doing, or is that what you mean? Basically, I do see her in Serrato Park quite often. And she's one of the ones that is out there distributing the food along with feeding Westchester. And I think it's great because I think there's a need for it. But I also agree with what you've said, and it makes sense. So you're saying, you know, it's basically what I say, right? Instead of giving me fish, teach me how to fish. That way I can feed my family, and then I can go and teach somebody else, and they can feed their family. So you're saying basically that it's great that we have the food distribution programs. They're very much needed. However, we need to bring in more programs and resources that will allow for individuals to become independent, right? Independent and not dependent on a system or a food distribution, so they don't have to be out there in line. And it's tough. I mean, we're you know, in a bad economy. There's a lot going on nationally as well. How do you propose that we do this? And I know you're a community guy, and I know that you've started several community programs where you've impacted the lives of many of the youth in Yonkers. Now, but if elected as Westchester County Legislator for District 17, what would you do to, or what ideas do you have? But also, what real strategy and plan do you have to implement these ideas to bring some of these programs you speak of?
So let's take a couple examples, right? So we want to talk about community programs, right? There should be subsidies that are allocated for single parents that maybe cannot afford after school programs because they're the only ones that are working. And how can they provide for their children if they're working, you know, 9, 10 hours a day and they're not getting home till 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, and they barely make enough money to make ends meet? The living conditions in which people live in, they spend the majority of their money paying the rent. They can barely afford to pay their light, their gas, their food. So the first thing we need to address is to have better jobs. You know, everybody's so, you know, excited when like a Walmart comes in. But Walmart pays like minimum wage. Like nobody could survive on that. We need living wages. We need politicians to go out there and speak about a living wage. You know, the county legislation, the body itself, the 17 legislators, they voted to give themselves a 52% pay increase. How many people get 52% pay increase? Like if they get it, everybody should get it. They have great health care. If they get it, everybody else should get it. So I believe that we need to create opportunities. How do we create opportunities? Well, let's look at all the money that government spends on programs, right? So let's say like the YMCA, who receives millions of dollars to create these programs. And I know they've reached out to me. The Nepperhan Community Center has reached out to me. The PAL has reached out to me because they have a difficult time reaching kids. So they'll bring me in because kids enjoy the things that I provide. And then they have their staffing. They can pay their staffing. So by creating programs and creating services, you can actually employ people, local people, not like the developers that bring in outside people. I'm talking about we need to employ people from the city of Yonkers. I have a nonprofit for over 20 years now, and I would say probably about 90% of these kids don't have a job here in Yonkers. They all work outside of Yonkers. They can't find a job. And the only people that seem to get jobs in Yonkers are those that are connected to the political structure. And if you're not connected in that way, then you're not going to get a job. I don't care what your degree is. And I can tell you that 60% of our kids that are in my program go to college. Many of them receive full scholarships, Division I scholarships. I went to prestigious schools from NYU to just everywhere, and they don't work in Yonkers.
Let me just back up a bit. You said a mouthful there. In terms of the opportunities, right, for people of the city of Yonkers, what opportunities are we talking about in terms of that are available but are not necessarily available to all residents of the city? And be a little more specific, because you kind of said something there, and I just want to touch on that a little bit.
Okay, so let's be specific, right? So let's look at the fire department. At one time, if you wanted to join the Yonkers Fire Department, you had to live in the city of Yonkers. Well, that changed. Now, if you want to become a Yonkers firefighter, you have to live in the city in the county of Westchester. Now, in the city of Yonkers, people of color are now the majority of. They're right there, but they are. If you consider, Hispanics, African Americans, Asians, if you group all of them together, and you say these are people of color, Hispanics being probably the largest, they got to be close to 40% by now. So we represent the majority. It's interesting to me that once we became the majority, now the rules change. You no longer have to live in the city of Yonkers to become a firefighter. You just have to live in the county of Westchester, in which, when you bring those demographics, you're going from over 50% people of color to like maybe 20%. Well, that changes everything. And now you don't have to live in Yonkers. So you're taking employment away from local people that can benefit from that. That's a specific example.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Hey.
Right. And I just, why did it change? Tell me that. Why was it that they changed that requirement where now it opened it up to more people in the entire county as opposed to just the city of Yonkers? I mean, was there a specific reason for that? Was there not enough qualified people? Because I think that's what's been one of the arguments. There's just not enough qualified people in the city of Yonkers.
Well, I think
let me just really quick before you respond, I want to also say this. I've heard this in terms of minorities. And I'll be very honest. I heard this when speaking in regards to minorities, because one of the arguments is that we don't have enough minority police officers, firemen, right? And they talk about the qualifications, right? And those that are capable of meeting those qualifications. There's a lack of, I should say.
I think what we want is fairness, right? And this country has a history of not being fair to people of color. It's been well documented. We don't have to go back 250 years, right? It's been well documented. So I think that when you see the migration of people coming to America, you look at the people that get to benefit from these things. Most of them, unfortunately, happen to be Europeans. Those are the facts. When you look at people, let's just take like immigration for an example, right? Everybody focuses on people from South America, Central America. They don't focus on the northern border. They focus on the southern border. They don't focus on the Asian community, which is the #1 community that comes into this country. They focus again on the southern border. Now, right. Is that a coincidence? Maybe. Who knows? But I think ultimately we have to look at to see we have to be honest.
Right.
We have to have an honest conversation.
I don't want to get straight too far outside of Yonkers, right? I mean, there is those, we can make arguments regarding things of national concern, right? And but in talking about Yonkers, right, and more specifically in terms of the employment within opportunities in the city of Yonkers, right, there's this talk about a lack of qualified candidates. Is that truly the case? And maybe is that why they opened it up to the entire county as opposed to limiting it to Yonkers?
Of course not. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. We have 200,000 people living in the city of Yonkers. You're telling me that nobody's qualified? Those are just silly arguments that they, you have to go to bed at night, right? If that's what makes you feel good, then, more power to you. But of course that's not. I mean, come on, let's be serious now. That's like saying for all the people that don't get into Harvard, you're just not smart enough. Of course you are. Listen, the system is not built for people that look like me or look like you, to be quite honest with you. It's never been that way. Redlining, there's always been things that have been that this country has done, that the politicians have done. What's unfortunate is that when we start to try to balance things out, we tend to just fall for the okey doke. People of color do it to themselves. They don't really see. It's like the axe that keeps supporting the trees that keep supporting the axe because it's made that the handle's made out of wood, and then one day there was no more forest. I feel like that's what's happening here in the city of Yonkers. You have a very strong established party that does not want to relinquish 1 ounce of power, 1 ounce of influence, to the point where they'll come after you personally. If they have to make up lies, they'll do it. And they've done it, and they're doing it now, right? And you have a structure, a built-in structure. You talk about 30, 40, 50 years of power. That's not something that can be changed overnight. That takes a movement. That takes courage. And for people that are running for office, first timers or people like myself, it's not my first time, but we're trying to change it. It's not easy. It's not easy when they attack you. It's not easy when they attack your family. It's not easy when they lie and they have their army and their minions doing the same thing. And who has the courage to stand up to say, I disagree with that. That's wrong. You shouldn't do that. If you want to debate the issues, let's debate the issues. But why do mudslinging and why attack people just because you feel like they're a threat?
Right. That was a lot there. That was a lot, London. And just to play devil's advocate, right? And this is something that is not new. It's been mentioned about you in the past, in your past elections. Are you just someone that's upset? Are you upset because you've have not been able to break into politics?
No, I never thought about politics.
Well, I'm just asking you because, right? I mean, as someone that kind of just analyze things and try to understand people's behavior, stuff like that. And this is also something that's been mentioned. I just, I think it's something that, I want to bring up. Is it something that you have an issue with, or is there truly this establishment, that is really, like you said, trying to hold on to power? And if so, give me a little more clarity. I mean, just to understand, because they say that about, and I'm always been into national politics, right? And there's always the establishment, the power, the Nancy Pelosi's and this, that, and third. But here in Yonkers specifically, what do you specifically mean by that when you say the establishment and retaining power?
So what I'm saying specifically is I believe in social justice, and I believe everyone should have an equal opportunity. And then however things work out, they work out, right? Some people are more ambitious. Some people are brighter. Some people are stronger. Some people are smarter. Everyone is different, but we should all be presented with the same opportunities. But what I don't agree with and what I don't like is when you tip the scales to benefit you. And so when you have a group of people, right, and it's in every party, Republicans or Democrats, they're both equally guilty of doing the same thing. They change the rules to benefit themselves. So let's talk about term limits, for example, right? So they put in term limits. They said basically, you should serve 8 years and give people, an opportunity for fresh ideas, new opportunities. That's what you need. And it basically it weeds out some of the corruption. It weeds out some of the cronyism. Now we went from 8 years to 12 years. Okay. Then we have a way to circumvent that, right? So one of my opponents has already served 12 years, now looking to serve 14 years. The loophole is, well, it's not 12 consecutive years. So I can serve 10 years, take a break, come back, serve another 10 years, take a break, come back, serve another 10 years, take a break. So there are always loopholes or ways to go about things so that it benefits you. And
I'm sorry, just to be clear, when you say your opponent and they're circumventing the term limits by taking a break and then coming back to run for that position again. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, he didn't take a break. He actually lost to my other opponent. I mean, for 20 years, we've had two people represent Southwest Yonkers. And that's what I tell people. I represent change. I think we need community organizers, people that are in the community, that are active, that are paying their dues. There is not one single politician that can match my record when it comes to community service, when it comes to organizing, to debates, rallies, I helped bring $25 million to the city of Yonkers by creating the SOS rallies. I'm just a regular person. I have no magic powers. I have no influence. It's not like I sit in office and I can pick up a phone and make things happen. I don't have those things. Anybody that's sitting in office right now can do that.
Right.
That's the benefit of being an elected official.
And just to be clear, your opponents are Virginia Perez,
Yeah.
and Jose Alvarado.
Yes.
Alvarado. And I say it like that because I've been saying it wrong. I've been calling him Alvaro. And that's because I know a gentleman by the name of Alvaro. So I'm sorry about that. Jose Alvarado. And Jose is the incumbent, right? And so now you have Virginia Perez, who's in the race as well. And she once held that position, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then she lost to Jose. Is that correct?
No. So what happened was that Jose first got elected in 2001, and then he served, I believe it was 10 consecutive years. And then Virginia ran a phenomenal campaign. She's one tough cookie, I'll tell you. She basically said that this is a guy that is a no-show. He's been no-show for 10 years. And they put up like posters that said, if you find this person, call me, I'll solve your problem. And she wound up beating him. It was a big upset. Then she served 8 consecutive years. And then she opened up her own business and decided not to run again. And she left that seat vacant. At that time, I ran, Jose ran, and Lucy Casanova also ran. And Jose wound up winning by 302 votes. A lot of people said that Lucy Casanova and myself split that vote, and that gave Jose an opportunity to get elected. And he served this last term, and now he's running for re-election again. And if it's up to him, he'll serve 12 years if he could, or 10 years, and maybe take a break and come back for another 10 years.
So, so it seems like a lot's going on there, right? And and it seems like it's the same group of characters. I don't want to call them characters. That's probably not the appropriate thing to say, but a group of people, right? That are like circulating this position, right? I also hear what you're saying. You're saying basically that we need more grassroots community organizers, people with experience in organizing events in the community, particularly with young people, and doing something positive and seeing a positive result, right? Unlike your opponents, is what I'm hearing, who are not in the community, right? Are not community organizers, right? Some say they may not even live in the community or in Yonkers, from what I'm hearing. I hear several people cross bridges at night. And so why should the people vote for you? Why should they believe in you then? What makes you different from another person looking to be a politician?
Well, again, I think that it has to come down to who's authentic, right? And this campaign really is going to be based on that. So I don't think, listen, all three of us, have our strengths. All three of us are strong in certain areas, right? Jose is an establishment politician. The establishment is with him. So there's strength in that, right? You have the whole Democratic Party, right?
But I understand there's strength in that, but is that necessarily something that should be pointed out as a positive thing, right? So we're talking about what have they done, right?
Well,
versus what you have done, right? So what has Jose Alvarado done in his time, his tenure as the legislator for District 17? Is there anything we can say positive that we? And I'm not. I'm still learning again myself also, but I mean, and if you can't tell me what he's done, you can tell me what he has not done, right? The gentleman's been there for some time now, right? So I need, what are some of the issues in District 17? And again, I can tell you now, the violence in the Nodine Hill section is being one of them. Lack of community programs being another one, right? And I say that because I want to know the issues, right? And I want to know what is it that London Reyes is going to do. I understand there's people that's establishment people, right? And they're tough to beat. But that's what I want to know. What separates London from these people? What else are you going to do to make a change in District 17 that has not been already done?
Well, I'm going to be a full-time county legislator. There is no full-time county legislator. You know, Jose Alvarado has a full-time job. He works a 9 to 5 job at the Parks Department. How they're not holding meetings at 9 o'clock in the evening, you know, so there's no way that this can be a priority. And for anyone to say different, they're lying to you. There's no way. It's impossible. It's impossible. It doesn't happen, you know. So he's already been in trouble with having multiple jobs, right? Then you have Virginia Perez, right? Who people argue back and forth. Is she a Democrat? Is she Republican? You know, she's a fighter, right? So I don't want to knock either one of them. They do some good things, but to me, they're not community organizers. They're not in the community. There is no politician that's in the community. What they do is they show up to other people's events. Experienced politicians make you think they're helping through charity, but charity is not a substitute for good policy. For example, voting for educational cuts, but then saying they have compassion because they give you free book bags. I think that's wrong. Would you rather have music, art, sports, or free book bags? Right? Voting to cut subsidies for children. You can't afford now to pay for after school programs or childcare services. And then you say, well, you know, the crime. I mean, it's all connected. You have to be in the community organizing, and they're not doing that. I have a 20-year track record. None of them have created events or functions. They're working with other people like myself, like the Galata House, like the Matthew Wallace Foundation, like Feeding Westchester. Those are not things they created. Those are programs that exist or organizations that exist to help the community that these politicians, these experienced career politicians go and then say, hey, we're giving out food, or hey, we're doing this. But they're not organizing those things. They're not creating those things. That's what clearly separates me from any politician. I don't care who it is.
Right. And that's why I'd ask, because I like what you said there, right? You kind of gave me a little bit more information, a little more detailed in exactly what you mean, right? Yes, you see politicians, and I've seen it. I'll be honest. I've seen it. It was strange that you take a photo op, right? You hand one bag, say cheese, the photo snaps, and then they walk away. It's very disheartening, and it's it makes you just kind of feel a little discouraged in that you were wanting to be a part of something that's creating change, and then you start to see the facade, right? The show that some people put on. And again, and I wanted you to say that also, to be clear on what you've done, and in terms of what you mean in the community specifically. Like, you've created the AAA All Stars, right? AAA All Stars is a basketball league, correct?
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, not
I'll
a
let you
basket.
explain.
Okay.
I'll let you
Yeah.
explain
So
it.
right. So it's not. So here's a perfect example, right? So when I first created that organization, I didn't have a name for it, right? So when I started it, I called it GBC, for Global Basketball. I wanted to use basketball as a vehicle, and what my vision was is to incorporate singing, dancing, poetry, basketball, training, all these different things. And every time I went to an organizer or the politicians, or just, you know, the YMCA, the PALs, they said, London, you're doing too much. Focus on one thing. You can't sing, you can't dance, you can't do poetry and do basketball at the same time. You sound crazy. You're all over the place. And then, you know, I started thinking like, but I'm not. It's, to me, it's expression. You know, everybody has a different way of expressing themselves, whether it's through crayons, paintbrushes, spray cans, whether it's through singing or dancing. It's just a way to communicate. So I disagree with them. So we kept bumping heads. So then one day I told my wife, I said, you know, they keep giving me a hard time. They're making it sound like I'm crazy. So I have to brand this somehow. I said, so what's another word for education? And she said academics. I said, okay, I kind of like academics. And then I said, you know, I can't use basketball because, you know, what's another word for basketball or sports? And she said athletics. I said, oh, I kind of like that. AA. I said, man, it would be kind of cool if we can find like a third A. She goes, yeah, the arts. And I said, oh my God, you're brilliant. This is wonderful. What a great idea. The AAA, like your car, when it breaks down, you call AAA and they fix your car. Well, we'll be called the AAA All Stars. And when your child breaks down, you'll call us and we'll fix that child. And all of a sudden, I didn't change anything. I just gave it a name, an identity. And because of that one name, everybody, wow, that's brilliant. Oh my God, I love it. That's great. But before it had that name, I was all over the place. I was in balance. It was, you're doing too much. You're going, people are going to think you're Looney Tune. Then when I gave it a name, it became something totally different. So to me, that was the beginning of me, understanding that people don't get it because they're not in the streets. They're not involved. They're not working with parents. And I'm not saying everybody, because there are some that do, right? But they're not elected officials. Elected officials are not in the community. They're only there to assist. In other words, like, you organize this and I'll be there to support you, and it'll make you look good. And because it makes you look good, it makes me look good. But they're not really organizing this. I challenge you to bring on an elected official over the last 20 years and have them come on your show and say, I created this program. This is my program that I created it. I funded it. I organized it. They're not going to do that. They can't.
Right. And I think that's the message that people should get from you, right? If there's anything, that you are a community organizer, you have a proven track record, and you've actually worked with many of the youth of Yonkers, and you've seen results, right? Some of them have gotten scholarships as a result of.
Freddie, can I interrupt you? So
Sure.
let me give you a quick example. So one day, I've been with Nike for about 16 years. So I have great contact, great resources. So one day I go and I write a proposal, and I meet with the mayor, and I meet with the Parks Department. I meet with the board. I bring one of the kids that I coach, Doug Hogue, who was at the time playing for an NFL team. I don't know, the Lions or one of these teams. And I says, look, we'll pay to redo a park. We'll pay for the backboards, fiberglass backboards. We'll put new rims. We'll do the floor. All we need is for you guys to come in there and just put it together. Like, we can't get the labor. You guys do the labor. We'll take care of everything else. I'm still waiting. There's always hoops. The ceilings are too high. The floor is too low. The sun is too bright. There's always a reason why we can't. We're paying for it. Like, I got Nike on. Like, what is it that, what do I need to do? Like, I don't get it. Like, you're not even paying for it. We're just asking you to go out there and assemble. Like, we're going to buy it. You guys can put it together. And it's a problem. There's always an issue.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that issue is? Why does that problem exist? And why are the politicians not more willing to create programs like this? And I understand there's the money issue, right? That's always, we don't have money. But I think you seem to have gone and done you did a lot of the legwork, right? And you weren't asking for much. So what is it that just keeps these things from happening?
Well, look, the truth of the matter is that you got to be politically connected. You got to be a team player. If you're not a team player, they don't want to empower you more. So someone like me that is truly independent, right? I'm totally independent. I'm not with anybody. I'm just by myself, in a sense, with the community. Like, I'm with the teachers, I'm with the parents, I'm with the students. So someone like me, as an independent broker, if you will, right? If I have influence and I'm telling people, wow, they're not doing the right thing, then that upsets the establishment. Now the establishment says, oh, okay, you want to play like that? No problem. Every elected official, we're the Democratic Party. We don't like this person. So we're not going to, I'll put it to you like this. There is nobody in the last 20 years that can get kids like I get kids. I get kids by the hundreds. I'm still waiting for a phone call from anybody that's in office right now to say, London, we need your help. Think about that for a minute. They have a youth program, services that they're trying to bring back to life.
Right.
That's like me saying I want to start a basketball league and I'm not interested in Michael Jordan services. I'm not interested.
Tell me a little bit about the youth program. They have this thing called the Yonkers Youth Program, and I think your opponent, the incumbent, Jose Alvarado, does he spearhead it? Does he organize it? What does he do with it? I know he's involved.
Well, he doesn't do anything with it. It's the mayor that's trying to make him look good, right? He feels that he might be vulnerable. Virginia's a very strong opponent. I like to think that I'm somewhat, competitive as well. And he feels like, Jose is a good guy and he does everything that we ask him to do. And,
hold on. So you're saying that this is created completely just to make Jose Alvarado look good? There's nothing going on there?
Well, I'll put it to you like this. It's election season. It's funny how they mention it now. When I first ran for office, the biggest complaint that I got was, London, you're mixing city issues with county issues. And I said, no, I'm not. I went to the county website and I looked at everything they funded. I don't talk about Yonkers Public Schools. I talk about educational programs and services that the county funds. Yeah, but you're talking about education and it's going to make some people look bad because our school system is embarrassing. It's terrible. So don't talk about that. Talk about the airport. And I would say, well, I don't think the people in my district care about the airport. I think they care about having more educational services, having more health care services,
Hold
addressing
on.
the homeless.
Let me just interrupt there for a second. So you're telling me that in your experience of campaigning, right, you've had people tell you not to discuss issues that needed to be discussed because
Correct.
it would make another politician look bad. Well,
Correct.
why doesn't that
Yes.
politician then make himself look good by addressing the issue?
But this is what I'm trying to explain, and maybe I'm not
But
doing a good job. This is a system that you
no,
have.
I mean, you know, you're explaining and I'm understanding it. I think what I don't understand is the that actually happens.
Yeah, I mean
That's what I'm not understanding.
that's common. So if you're not like astute politically, and not everybody is, and I'm still developing, but obviously I've been in this for 4 years now, right? 4 years ago, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know what district leader was. So they just threw me in with the wolves, they threw me into the ocean with the sharks, and you either sink or swim. So to me, it was a crash course that I had to like learn like rapidly because I didn't understand what I was getting myself involved in. Now, 4 years later, I have a better understanding. There is a machine that is out there that will eat you alive. You don't believe me? Go ask Mike Cater. There is a machine that is ruthless, that will stop, they will do by any means necessary to make sure that they get what they want. Not what the people want, but what they want. And we have to really understand that. Because in order for us to be successful in the things that we need to do, we have to understand what's happening. We are cutting services, we are cutting programs, we are cutting healthcare services so that we can give developers and big corporations tax breaks that they don't need, so that they can create buildings and apartments that people can't afford, or so that they can employ people at $7 an hour or $7.75. That to me is not good government. That to me is bad policy. That to me is why Yonkers is suffering. People are crying out, and the violence that you see is caused by frustration. People are tired of making $8 an hour, $10 an hour. You cannot live on that. You cannot afford to even pay your rent. Think about that for a minute. Think about the amount of stress that people are feeling, that they're going through, because they have to worry about where they're going to live, what they're going to eat, how can they afford to pay their light bill, they're going to have heat. Are they going to have any of these things so that these millionaires, not even millionaires, billionaires, can get these tax breaks? They're sucking the life out of people here in Yonkers. We can't afford to live in Yonkers. We just can't. We're being priced out. And what they're doing is they're shipping these people from Manhattan who are saying Manhattan is too expensive. I can't afford $5,000 for a studio apartment. So I'm going to move to Yonkers. They're doing the waterfront. I can afford the $3,000 for the studio apartment. But meanwhile, the regular person can't even afford $1,000 for a studio apartment. And you're seeing it, gentrification. You're seeing it. We're going through it right now. And there has to be balance. People are calling for a 20% affordable housing ordinance. When I talked about that 4 years ago, I was labeled as crazy. I was labeled as a rebel. Like, see, there goes London again. Doesn't know what he's talking about. No one's going to agree to that. It's got to be a 10%. But now everybody's calling for 20%. 20% is not going to do it, right? If you're not calling for at least 25%, think about that. A quarter. 25% is really not that much. You're talking 100 units, 10 apartments is 10%. So 20% is 10 more apartments. We're doing all of this fighting for 10 more units. Like, come on, what are we talking about here? Like at some point, you have to have the courage to stand up for what's right. Even if you're the only one that's doing it, you have to have that conviction. And I'm passionate about these things because I see the struggle. I'm going through it. I have hundreds of kids and family members that I deal with. I see it. I'm not in an office in an AC with my feet up, relaxed. I'm in the trenches. I'm in the schools. I'm in the playgrounds. I'm in the parks. I'm in the streets. I'm doing all of these things. And when I'm doing it, I don't see these politicians there unless it's an opportunity for a photo op. Then I see them out there. And at some point, we have to say enough is enough. Like, what is it that we're really fighting for? What is it that we want? I believe that we want to be treated fairly. We want things to be equal for everybody. We want to have a good quality of life. We want community investment for working families. That's what we're fighting for. Childcare, youth and senior services. How about more mobile clinics? Since they closed down the clinics, there's ways that we can create opportunities. We just have to be able to work together. And we can't look to punish people that disagree with us. We can disagree respectfully. It's not a problem. We can agree to disagree. But what I don't like is when they try to assassinate a person's character because you have a policy disagreement. And I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong to give tax-free investments to developers or corporations and make it seem like we need these corporations. We don't need these corporations. Yonkers has given away so much land. Like I said before, we cannot even afford to build a school. If someone donated $1 billion, we cannot even build a school in here in Yonkers because we don't have the land.
Yes, there has been a fire sale in Yonkers. Get your empty lot while it's still available.
You're funny. You know what it is? It's greed
Listen,
that's destroying our community.
I want to tell you that that's something that I noticed. And I had brought it up to a member of the community, and you said a lot there, but you said a lot of things that were true. And I just want to say I brought that exact point up to a member of the community regarding the Yonkers properties that were being sold, just left and right. And I said to this person, I said, wow, it seems like there's a fire sale going on in Yonkers. I mean, there's lots of properties that were, there when I was young, empty lots. And now they, recently been bought up. They're starting to do a lot of developments right down the corner of Prescott and Buena Vista. They're going to put up something huge there. Good luck to those who want to get out there alive without trampling all over each other. It's not a big area, but they're putting up huge buildings there. And that lot was empty for years. And I just wonder what was going on, and now I'm starting to see what's happening. And this person did not respond to me on this, and the reason why I bring this up, not just because of the fire sale, but because also this person is a member of the community. And going back to what you were saying, community organizers, community organizations that are out there, and the favoritism that is played among certain groups who get certain benefits for their organizations, and what are they really doing, right? I'm all about bringing awareness. That's why I did the show. I'm glad you said everything you said. The goal is not to mudsling. The goal is not to create negativity within the city or amongst the voters. The goal is to bring awareness, right? Who are the people that are really benefiting? What's really happening here? Are we replacing people with other people, right? And I say that because if we look at the numbers, let's take the Yonkers Public Schools, for example. 80% of the students come from a low income housing. Their parents are at or below the poverty line. 80%. That's almost all the kids in the public school. So if that's the case, if 80% of the students in a population, right, in a city, right, are at or below the poverty level, what does that say about the rest of the community where they're at? So who are these developments coming in for? It can't be for the families of the 80% of the kids that are, living in again, low income communities. They don't have the money, like you said. The rents are going up. And I also mentioned this to someone. If you're bringing in more developments, I think it was Stella Suchow, you're going to also increase the cost of living naturally, right? Because you're going to bring in more businesses, right? You're going to bring in more people that are going to increase the demand on these businesses. And when there's an increase on demand, right, the price goes up because supplies goes down. basic law, supply and demand, business 101. So what do you think is going to happen ultimately down the line? And a lot of people do not have the foresight, not because they're not intelligent, and I'm not insulting anyone, but a lot of people just do not understand some of these business transactions, some of these, the vision that some of these developers have and had for, I'm hearing, going back 20 years now. So this is nothing new. This was planned for a very long time. And it seems like nothing is going to get in the way, not even you, London, right?
You're
Not
right about
even
that.
Mike Cater, right?
Right.
And or anyone else, Carlos Burgos, anyone else that's been attacked, right, recently by the mudslinging, by the group of developers who created this committee for better Yonkers. They want a better Yonkers, and it will be better, but not for everybody. It will be better for a select group of people. And I just think that that's not fair. I can't sit well seeing that happen. And I just want to bring awareness. And I'm glad you mentioned all of that because that's important, London. And I think that candidates, especially those that are genuine and that truly want to win an election, must present the information honestly and its in entirety, right? That's what I believe.
I agree. To be quite honest with you, far too many campaigns are built on wealthy influences and establishment politics, which has resulted in elected officials using their scope of influence to cater to those who have political influence. Candidates running for office cannot serve the people when their position is based on where they get their support from. This is an inherent conflict, and until that changes, don't talk to me about reform or change or anything like that, because that's just a dream. It's a fantasy. It's not real. It's not realistic. We need to change the system created by politicians who are funded by wealthy donors in order to maintain power while suppressing the vote. And I promise you, these wealthy people and these people that have the major political influence are going to do whatever they can to suppress the vote because they can't win when people vote.
Not to cut you off, but you mentioned suppressing the vote. And it's something I wanted to bring up, and I'm glad you reminded me. It seems like there's been some attempt at suppressing the vote, right? It seems like there's been some attempts at intimidating voters or limiting the voters or encouraging voters not to vote via mail-in, which many voters need to do because one reason or another, whether health issues or the pandemic. And I think we have spoken about this, in our brief chats whenever I could get you on the phone just to say, hey, how's it going? I like to touch base with all the candidates. What's going on? Talk to me a little bit about that because it's getting interesting. And I've also heard about some ballots going on without all the races on them, or the races that should be on them, the citywide race, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I think that you have to look at what's happening, right? And what's really happening. So to me, I look at it like this. There are a lot of Republicans that are now Democrats. That's where the party has gone. So the Democratic Party, is it really Democrat? So we're so conditioned to vote Democrat all the way. Doesn't even matter who it is. As long as it's a Democrat, I'm going to vote for that person. And we're not really understanding the politics of what's happening. You have your traditional Democrats, right? Your old school Democrats, then you have your Republicans, which are now Democrats. And then you have your independent Democrats. So all Democrats are not cut from the same cloth. We have to understand that. You have to understand what each person represents. What is their history? What do they believe in? What are they trying to accomplish? And when you look at the Republican Party, they have a history. Well, look what's happening now in the United States of America, right? They're trying to take away the absentee ballots now. They're trying to cut down the polling sites now. They're trying to change the polling sites. You confuse people. I used to vote here. I don't vote.
Let me slow you down for a bit, London. All right, I want to go back to the voter suppression thing and be more specific because, again, like I said, I get emails, I get things. I have sources now. I don't even tell my wife who the sources are. And she's asked. She actually got mad at me.
Right.
Can you believe that? My wife got mad because I didn't tell her who one of my sources was.
Right.
And I said, honey, it's for everyone's protection. But I did receive a ballot, right? And I want to talk to you about it. And I'm glad you brought it up because it was in your district. I believe it came from your district. This was a ballot. It was two of them, actually, that came from that district by someone somehow managed who lives in that district to get these ballots. And they contained only one race. And that was the race for county clerk, which is between Shanae Williams and Tim Idoni. Is that
Mhm.
say? Am I saying it correctly?
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah. So, however, the race for city council president was not on the ballot, and that's a citywide race. How did that happen? Do mistakes like that happen?
Well, I guess anything is possible, but like think about it. We have professionals, right, that are working in the you would think the professionals working at the county, right? So, I mean, I guess mistakes do happen. I don't really know, like,
Well, you being looking to run as a county legislator, right? This is something that I think would be brought up to you, right, as the Westchester County Board of Elections and anything involving that agency. I think you would be the person for anyone in your district in Yonkers to go to resolve that. Correct?
well, I look at it like this, right? This is what makes people concerned about our elections, right? And like, why can't we go back? I don't like not having a receipt. I like a paper trail, to be quite honest with you. If I vote, I want to have some type of paper trail so that we have to recount or there's something wrong with these new machines that the county is trying to buy, where if you vote, there is no paper trail. So who knows? You can probably, I mean, these kids are so freaking bright these days. They can hack the machine. Like there's no telling. I prefer the old school way of voting. Have a paper trail. There's got to be some type of receipt so that if anything happens, we can
Right.
go back. So in that case, with those ballots that you're referring to,
Right.
if someone tried to vote on those ballots, not knowing that there's more than one race, because not everybody's an educated voter. I hate to say that, but that's true. So if you get a ballot like that, you might think, well, okay, well, maybe there's no one running, but these two people. Some people might really believe that. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anybody, but those things can happen. So if there's a paper trail, we can fix all of this. But it comes back down to we have to really understand what's happening. To me, there's a lot of coincidence. Maybe
Well,
not.
yeah. I mean, look, anything's possible, right? Mistakes do happen. We're human after all, right?
Mhm.
I just can't fathom the idea that that was a mistake. And I'm not trying to stir nothing up. I mean, really, you're gonna leave out probably for the city of Yonkers the biggest race,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah,
most
that
important
is,
race, and not that your
yeah,
race isn't important. I think all of them are important,
right.
but the city council president, it's probably the most important race for the residents of the city of Yonkers, I think,
Yeah,
and for
yeah,
that to be to have been left off a ballot, two ballots, right, in District 17, which is also District 2 on the council side, correct?
yep. 2 and 3. Well,
2 and
one,
3
two,
or
three, and
3?
four. Yeah,
1, 2,
yeah.
3, and
Well,
4?
both. Yeah, because in my district, the 17th district, I have 4 city council
Well,
representatives.
okay, so it could have been any one of those districts there within your district, correct?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
either way, there should have been the race for city council president. So there should have appeared Mike Cater's name, the incumbent, the current city council president. There should have been Lakeisha Collins Bellamy. I'm sorry, and Pete Spano, correct, on that
yeah.
ballot, along with the county clerk's race. But there wasn't.
Every single ballot that a person receives must have no less than 2 races, and that would be the county clerk, and that would be the city council president. Every single ballot should have that. Now, some might have 3 races, some might have 4 races because it's not a county legislator running in every single
Right.
district, right? So 16 and 17, they do.
Right. But that race, right? Mike Cater, city council president race, that should have been on the ballot, right?
Oh,
So
yeah, absolutely.
I wish I could have a copy of it. That might be worth money someday. It's like the Truman
Right,
Wins
right.
newspaper. I actually had a Bush Wins, or what it was back in 2000. The wrong one, they said it. But anyway, so I mean, if you look at that, if you take that into account, I hear about robocalls being made,
Yeah,
voter intimidation, people calling folks up saying, "Hey,
yeah.
don't vote via mail-in ballot. Don't vote for this person." And then I've also saw a comment on Facebook a few days back where a gentleman said that I think it was a gentleman said that his 12-year-old received a text message. I guess it was a robo text message, right?
Mhm.
That was just spewing negativity, and that person was upset that their child had received such a text message. Where do these robocalls originate? I mean, how did that work? If I
I
want
mean,
to
we
do
got
roll
to,
call.
yeah, I mean, we got to clean up our political system. It's really, we need reform, and the power structure is not gonna make that easy. So they don't want change. They don't want change.
So you're
And
implying that this is coming from the power structure. These robocalls. I mean,
I mean, listen,
oh,
I don't
well,
know
I
who's
mean,
so I don't know who's doing it specifically. What I am saying is that this is the power structure in the city of Yonkers. Now, one can argue, what does that power structure look like, or where does it resonate from, right? We can argue that, but the bottom line is that the Democratic establishment does not want change, right? They did not want Jamal Bowman. Every single elected Democrat did not support him, right? They do not want anybody to disagree with them. It's kind of like Trump in a way, right? You could agree with 99 things out of 100, but that one thing you disagree with, off with your head. And you don't believe me? Go ask Mike Cater.
hmm. And you mentioned that before. Go ask Mike Cater, and I think you're referencing the city council president because of all the and I actually had Mike Cater on last night with me on Father's Day. The attacks that have been levied against the city council president. I didn't receive anything. I was hoping to, but I didn't. No, I only got it through from other people forwarded. But attacks against the attacks against the city council president in reference to and honestly, I want to say this. I think it's really silly. I mean, and I get it talks to someone's character, I guess. But the issue there is whether or not he was making rental payments of $1,200 to his landlord, right? But there's so much more that are happening in the city that are actually affecting the residents directly in a much bigger way, right? And these are the things that need to be addressed, and I like that people are not afraid to speak like you, London. I had Stella Sucha. She wanted to come on also. She wasn't afraid to speak as well. And I just I think it needs to be talked about, right? I think it needs to be
Yeah.
talked about, and it needs to stop, and we need to focus on the issues, right? And again, I don't know where it's coming from, but like I said on Sunday when I spoke to the council president, whoever's doing is spending a lot of money.
Yeah, that's for sure. Listen, I want to make it very clear. Mike Cater and I don't always see eye to eye, but I can say that, to me, I don't like what's happening. I know that I went through something similar, and it's not pleasant, especially when you know it's not true and they're just doing this to win races. So, for me, I believe firmly, let's talk about the issues because that is what people really care about. And it's unfortunate that sometimes these tactics work. I mean, like, just you attack people, and after a while, people think it's true, and it's not. And it's unfortunate. And that's why I'm a big advocate to go out there, knock door to door, speak to the issues. And what I'm hoping that just good, decent people come together and we make a stand, and basically enough is enough. Let's clean this up. And we can't clean it up if we don't stick together because there is no one person strong enough to overcome
Right.
this.
Absolutely. We definitely need unity in the community. And I like that term. I just don't like that someone else came up with it that uses it. And I don't think they present a lot of unity in this community, right? And and I've been very vocal in my opinions and my beliefs. I try to remain unbiased when it comes to political matters. However, sometimes what's right, it's right, right? And you can't just stay neutral when you know something is wrong, and you become I guess a part of the problem at that point, right? And so my goal is simply to bring awareness. And I've seen the attacks, I've seen the negativities, I've seen the ballots missing the city council race, and more than one. And I just think it's crazy. There's something going on, and and the people need to be aware of it. They need to focus on the issues, make sure they don't get swayed by any of this negativity stuff, or don't allow robocalls, intimidation, right? Go ahead and vote through the mail. That's fine, especially if you can't make it. And we need to address why are some polling places being closed, or why are some being moved. And I think that was something that you and I spoke about. For example, the Emmanuel Temple, correct? over
Yeah.
on Rumsey Road. That
Yeah.
used to be a voting site, and now it's
Yeah.
been closed. Why?
Mhm.
Why?
That's a good question. And like I said, to me, I don't think they're accidents. I think just me personally, I think that if they make it difficult or confusing for people, then they have a tendency not to vote. And that's just my personal belief. I believe you should make it as easy as possible.
Sure.
Listen, make it a federal holiday. Everybody should get off, and if you decide, to work or however they want to work it out, let them work it out. But I think that if we can listen in Yonkers, it'll be a miracle if you can get 20% of the people to vote. So what does
Right.
that really mean? That means that you're going to have between 15 and 20% of the people making the decisions for the entire population and the entire city of Yonkers. Now, when you talk about that, numerically speaking, right, what are we saying? We're saying that the establishment has a built-in number. So they automatically know that they're never going to get less than 10% of the people to vote. And that's their people. So if their people represents 10%, they're going to vote the way that the establishment wants you to vote. Then you're stuck with that 9%. And if you're able to get a little bit more than 9% and you can get 11%, then that 11% beats the 10%, you might get change. But you know how hard that is? I mean, in my area, I think we're lucky to get 15% people voting.
Yeah.
So that means I got to pull out like an extra 1,000 people if I'm going to win. That's hard.
You were explaining that to me, when we first had a conversation, because again, I'm learning and stuff, and I was confused. I'm like, what are you, but I get it. And I see that there really is strategy in politics. You really have to focus on the numbers. And it's almost like a game. It's almost like a game,
Yeah.
and that's what I say. But what also, struck out to me, what you told me was the low voter turnout. And you were telling me that out of, I guess, how many are in your district, the total number? Give me the number of the population size in your district, District 17.
I have about 17,000 registered Democratic voters.
And out of that 17,000, how many do you expect to come out and vote tomorrow?
Whew. Listen, if we can get 2,000, that's a good day.
Wow. So it's a little bit above 10%, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So why do you think that people are not coming out to vote more? Why?
I think they're disgusted with what's happening. People are just, listen, there's a lot of reasons, right?
I mean, do you
Yeah.
think that they're just, and not to cut you off, but is it just that they're disgusted with Yonkers politics and that's just keeping them from voting? And I'm
Yeah.
asking,
So I'll break it down to you like this, right? So this is what it comes down to, right? When I go knocking on doors and what people tell me, oh, I don't want to vote. I'm sick and tired of these politicians. They only knock on my door when it's time to get elected. And I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. I don't disagree. That's why I'm not a politician. Right. So they're not interested because they feel like they're not authentic. So they don't want to be bothered. And what the sad thing is that the establishment, their people are going to vote no matter what. Rain, snow, hurricane, thunder, gunfights, they're going to vote. But for us, we look for any reason. Oh, it's raining. I don't want to vote. Oh, it's too hot. I don't want to vote. That's the difference, so it comes back to, you have to have that mentality that no matter what happens, I'm going to vote. I don't care how I vote. I don't care if it's early voting. I don't care if it's absentee ballot voting. I don't care if it's same day voting. Whatever it takes, vote. You don't have to vote for me. Just vote.
And I agree with you. I mean, I hear a lot of people complaining. And I don't want to call it complaining because they have a right to complain about some of these issues, right? But if we're having such a low voter turnout, and again, going back to what I said earlier in the interview conversation, what Councilwoman Tasha Diaz mentioned to me about people not coming out to the city council meetings.
Mhm.
So we have to also focus on not just changing the system, but we also have to change the culture, and also the way people think, and also educate them and help them understand why is it important to come out and vote, especially if you see these needs, right, that need to be attended to. So we have to, I guess, you have to fight the system, but you also have to get the people out get the people involved. How do you do that, London? How do you get the people to come out? How do we go from 2,000 voters, Democratic voters in your district of 17 out of 17,000 Democratic voters to at least 10,000 voters? How do we do that?
Just by working hard. So I'll give you an example. I ran for the first time 4 years ago. And when I first ran, nobody in the history of Yonkers ever got more than 1,000 votes. And Virginia Perez was the first person to do that. Right. So I like to think that we were able to drive those numbers up. So to me, I think that the more people that are engaged, the more people that you can register to vote. I believe that every child that goes to school and gets their driver's license should automatically be registered to vote. It should not be that it should just be automatically done. And then the next step is to get them out to vote. And what I try to explain to people, and I think we're making progress, but it's hard. It's not easy. I'll be honest with you. I mean, look, it's I don't know, almost 11 o'clock, 20 minutes to 11, and I'm here talking to you. This is what passion is about. This is what I'm about. I'm about doing what I have to do. I don't care what day it is. I don't care what time it is. I don't care what the weather is. I love doing this. And these are the type of people we need to find. People that do this not for financial gain. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never gotten paid in 20 ever. And I don't complain about it because I enjoy helping people. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I have value. It makes me feel like I found my place on this earth. And I enjoy it. I like spending time with families. I like knocking on doors. I like helping people. I go to bed feeling good, satisfied. And my only disappointment is that I can't do more of it. And I want to, but I need to be given an opportunity. And if I am given an opportunity, I think then people will start to see a difference. Then people will start to believe that change can happen. It's not something that's going to happen quick. It's not like a bicycle. You can make that U-turn relatively quick. It's more like a ship, and it takes a long time for that ship to turn around. It's not like a bike. So people have to understand that.
Yeah, I agree. People have to come out. And I think that part of campaigning, right, for candidates should be helping people register to vote. And I've seen that happen. I think someone did that in the prior elections. They got together. I think Jamal Bowman was there, actually. They got together and they had a voter registration drive, right? And I think that's very important that candidates should get together every year before elections and get people engaged, because you have to get the turnout up. You have to get the number of people involved up. And that's something that I think it's definitely needed. And I hope, that if that's you are the one that's elected, that you will be out there working hard. You've already have, but I hope that you will be able to do everything that you want to do. Because what it hears like from you is that you reach your limitation, right? You can't go anymore. You can't do anymore unless your hands are loosened up a bit. And that's where politics comes in for you, right? And that's what it's all about for you. It's about getting into a position where you have more, more room to do things and do what you would like to do. But again, it's not easy. Even when you get in, you're still going to find your challenges. Correct? You're still going to have people, give you some resistance. And how do you plan on dealing with that if elected?
Well, I'm fighting for the people. I'm fighting for access, right? The county has a $1.7 billion budget. You're telling me there's no money? There's money. It's what you fight for. And I don't believe that some of our elected officials are fighting for those communities, for those working families, for the everyday person. I believe that they're fighting for the wealthy people, the developers, the corporations. They're not fighting to make your life better. They're fighting to make their lives better. How much time and effort can a legislator give you if this is not their priority? That's what we have to understand. This is all I think about. This is all I enjoy doing. Like I've been doing this for 20 years, like not as an elected official, as an organizer. And all I've ever had was people put obstacles in front of me because I did not want to conform to the power structure. I did not want to do things that I felt were unethical. I wanted to be there for the people, for these parents, for these children that I saw struggling. And when I brought that to light, I got slapped in the hand like, bad boy, don't talk about those things. You're making us look bad. We're going to make things difficult for you if you don't cooperate with us. If you're not going to do what we say, then we're going to punish you. This is what I've been dealing with. And this is why Yonkers is the way it is. Going back to when I first started coaching, there used to be like 40 teams in a tournament. You can't even get 4 teams into a tournament. You have no more leagues. You don't have anything in the city of Yonkers. Why? Because every time somebody tries to do something, they get punished because they're not going to do what the politicians want them to do. Unless you conform and you do 100% of what they want, you're going to be labeled a problem. You're going to be, your character is going to be assassinated. Like, we're going to make life difficult for you and your family so that you either quit, you give up, or you just find another line of work. Some people do give up, unfortunately. I'm not that type of person, but I believe that we should continue to fight and advocate for the things to make everybody's lives better.
London, I agree. I totally agree. And you're right. Look, there are people there that are being used, and I know as minions, as tools, and they're doing it because they want to get whatever they need from the establishment for whatever it is that they're trying to do. Some organizations, they look nice, they get photo ops, they get to hand out things, and I see them online attacking each other on Facebook. It's very ridiculous. It's sickening. It's childish, and it needs to stop. And these are people that are in the community. Leaders of organizations, nonprofits that are doing this on behalf of certain politicians. And it's sad. And I'm being sent screenshots. I'm being warned. I'm being told this. I'm being sent that. It's incredible. It's incredible. And even from my own research, London, it's incredible. So I am a big proponent of change because I think it's time. I don't think Yonkers is horrible. I don't want to say that because I love the city. But there are definitely things that need to change. And I drove around Getty Square. I did a little bit of video, so go check that out. It's on Basement Politics. Not very long, maybe 20-second video, just of the area and just showing the problem, right? I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? It's been like that for so long. I mean, what are we doing? It should have been addressed. I should see something happening, and it's not. Right. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Again, as I say over and over, and this is why I am bringing people on like you, London, like Stella Sue Chow, and anyone. I give everyone a platform, but I definitely open it up to those who are not part of the system because they don't have the resources, right, to do the 20 different mailers, the big signs all over the place, right? The robocalls telling you not to vote, the money spent on the negative campaigns, like the ones we've seen against City Council President Mike Cater, right? So I'm trying to give folks who may not have these resources an opportunity because I want to do what I can to better my city. I do this for the people. I love it. London, thank you for coming on. We went over an hour, almost an hour and a half. But like your wife has mentioned about you and my wife's mentioned about me, we love to talk.
So let me just say this before we end this.
Absolutely. I was going to give you an opportunity to say one last thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to personally thank you for creating this platform because the truth of the matter is that you're the only platform that gives free without charging, without working with other people in any way, shape, or form, behind the scenes. Like I can't, like every time I want to sit down and talk on a platform, they want to charge me money. So I want to thank you.
How much, by the way? I'm curious. How much?
I don't even want to get into it because I don't want to put their business out there like that. But I could just tell you this. If you watch anybody doing interviews and you don't see me or you don't see other politicians or excuse me, elected officials, or I mean, not elected officials, candidates, it's because they can't afford that bill. That's what it comes down to. So, right. So I'm here because it's free. Like if you said, London, I'm going to need $1,000, then I'm like, okay, I can't do this. So if you see, and this is the God's honest truth, there is nobody, not one single platform that's willing to have people come on their show free. There has to be a payment involved. There has to be something happening Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And if they say that that's not true, then why haven't all of these candidates been on these platforms? And some have gone on there, right? But the truth is that just look at the way that they structure their business, if you will.
Well, just remind me to give you your credit card back. After I run it.
Yeah, right.
No, I definitely, I do this again to bring awareness. I'm fortunate enough to have a trust fund. My parents, I'm a trust fund baby, so I don't need anything. No, I'm joking there too. No, I do this because I totally want to bring awareness. I want to be involved, and this is just another form, another way for me to get involved, right? And I'm not looking for payment. I've heard about the payment stuff, which is why I make sure that I let folks know that I'm not being paid. I'm not receiving free rent from anyone, though I could use that at one of my businesses. Expensive, but no, I'm not receiving free rent. I don't receive anything. And if you have not seen a candidate come on my show, it's because they chose not to. And I have been snubbed already, snubbed twice. I had a couple people tell me they were coming on. I got excited, and it never happened. So it's not because I didn't want them on the show. It's not because I didn't make it available or to them. I make it available to everyone. And as you see, Stella Suchow called me up. I said, yes, let's go. You called up, also reached out to me. Hey, I got some more stuff I would like to talk about. Yes, because this is what the platform is for. And I will be bringing more to the city of Yonkers, more to the residents in other ways, not just political, but we'll talk about various topics that affect the city of Yonkers and the residents of the city of Yonkers, things that I think that might interest them. Things that I think they would like to hear about. And highlight, some of the great things that are happening here in Yonkers, because Yonkers is a beautiful city, right along the Hudson here, just north of Manhattan, right? I love this place, and I'm happy to be from Yonkers. I know it gets a lot of bad rap now. I see it on Facebook. I don't care what you guys say. Yonkers is still my home, and I love it. Yeah. And so I want to bring more positivity also. I don't want to talk about negativity, although I never planned on being negative with this show. It's about politics. What do you expect, right? It's going to go there. So, but I want to highlight positivity. I want to highlight people in the community that are doing a lot of great things, and just to put them out there, because the goal is to encourage everyone to get involved, right? I think that's key. That's how you beat the system. You don't beat it by talking about it, pointing it out. That's just one thing you do. But what you do to actually ultimately take the system down is you get involved. Everyone gets involved. Unity in the community, real unity.
Yes.
London, thank you so much, man. It's always a pleasure chatting it up with you. I see your lovely wife there. Like my wife loves to, my wife loves to comment. I see your wife commented there. I'm going to bring her up. How you doing, Mrs. Reyes? Good evening. Yes, it is very true. It is very true. Everything that was said here tonight is very true. And again, I think the primary thing that people should take away from tonight's show is involvement. Voting. Go out and vote. Get involved, because it's not just limited to voting, right? Get involved. Go out there, find something to do. Contact me, reach out to London, and other people you see out there in the city, and just get involved. So I think that's the key message for tonight's is get involved. That's how you beat the system. That's how you beat the power. We're much bigger than the power structure, the people, right? We got to get it together. London, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Have a great evening. Enjoy the rest of the week. Good luck tomorrow. Don't forget, folks, June 22nd is tomorrow. The day is here. The day that we've all been talking about. June 22nd, Democratic primaries. If you're a Democrat, then you should be going out to vote. I want to see that number come up, London, in your district and all throughout Yonkers. I want to see the number of voters come up. So I'm challenging you, Yonkers, New York, everyone in Yonkers, all districts, all over, vote. If you're a Democrat tomorrow, I want to see the numbers go up. Let's see. It's a challenge. If not, no more complaining. I'm done. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
London Reyes, candidate for Westchester County Legislator District 17. Make sure you go out and vote for him. London, where can they find your platform if they cannot go to bed tonight and want to check you out?
Hey, listen, the most important thing right now is to go vote 4A, all right? 4A, like an apple. Please get out there. Let's make this change. Let's make a difference. Let's make this a better place for you and me. God bless everybody. And thank you, Freddie. I appreciate you.
Yo, you're welcome. Thank you, London. Have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow. I'll be in touch with you. Hopefully everything goes well for you. Good luck, brother.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
Okay.
Freddie Vasquez, Basement Politics. Thank you for joining me on the remix. Brought London Reyes back to just kind of chat it up before the primaries, but make sure you go out and vote. Go out and vote. June 22nd is tomorrow. That's the day. Democratic primaries. If you're a Democrat, vote. If you're not a Democrat, then you have to wait till November. But vote. Either way, very important. Change only comes when you, the people, create it. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I love it. I love this. Basement Politics. We'll be back next Sunday, if not sooner. Thank you. Take care. Enjoy your night, folks.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.